I'm sad and there's nothing that I can do about it. All the things that make me sad about the situation are my grief. And this is the conversation I was afraid to have. Welcome to Call It Growth. Welcome to the podcast. On Call It Growth, we connect through conversations and sharing stories that supports our limitless growth, healing, and becoming. And we do so alongside anyone and everyone that finds safety and comfort on this space. Let's take a deep breath. I'm just gonna do it because in the last episode, that's actually what got me through the nerves and the anxiety of everything that was happening. So let's do that. I'm gonna take a deep breath in and out. It's amazing how breathing, something we do every day, changes when you do it a bit more intentionally. I wanted to start off this episode by saying thank you so much for the reception to my first video back. There was a little voice in my head, going on about how everyone has a podcast and people are sick of seeing me come back, what you have done to hush that voice and make it a lot softer is something that I will forever be grateful for. So thank you so much for hushing the little voice in my head that almost made this podcast not come back, because it was so worried about how everyone has a podcast and how people are sick of seeing me leave, and maybe people actually don't want to hear what I have to say. But that voice is a lot softer now and very insignificant. So thank you so much for what you've done, for the positive words, compliments on my skin, which was interesting. I think it's a lighting, but I'll take it. Yeah, I appreciate it so much. So this is a trigger warning. This conversation touches on grief, on death, on loss, on strained relationships. So if any of those topics might trigger you, I'd say move with caution. So today's episode, I wanted to talk about grief. Grief 3 years in. In the last episode, I spoke a lot about how the last episode I recorded triggered me so much, and I felt a lot of shame about feeling that triggered, and I just couldn't go ahead with it, right? That level of vulnerability and opening myself up to the world was a bit much. So I don't think I was ready to be seen and received in that way. I'm not sure if I am ready yet. However, I think it's worth going down this road and figuring out where exactly I am 3 years later. And this grief is in relation to the passing of my older sister. May her soul rest in peace. In 2022, in August of 2022. And in fact, when I recorded that last video, it would have been 4 months later from her passing. And that's maybe why there was a lot happening, because the feelings were so fresh. Although the other day I was watching an episode of Parenthood, and they have one of the characters, Christina, is diagnosed with cancer, and her cancer kind of evolves very quickly, and she struggles so much with the side effects of chemo and just her body going through it. And I remember chilling on the couch at some point when she almost passes, and I say to my partner, something is happening to my eyes and I don't know what it is. And I cried, man. It was so much I think it triggered that thing once again. I mean, obviously witnessing someone go through that and thinking about how my sister's experience could have been like, and also that chance that I mean, of my sister did eventually pass, but there was a lot of moments where health-wise she wasn't doing too well, that there was a lot of almosts, right, along her journey. You are probably catching on that my sister passed away after struggling with breast cancer for 7 years. She had recovered, the cancer had come back. Yeah, a lot happened. A lot happened that I wasn't exposed to because I was obviously studying at the time. And when I would go home, it wouldn't be for extended periods of time for me to witness how bad things were. The one time though that I did see that, hey man, things are not looking good, we were on a video call and we started talking, we chat. She was living at home at this point, and then she says, I'm feeling dizzy. And I'm like, okay girl, sit down. And she sits down, but it doesn't go away, and she has to lie down, and my mom has to take the phone from her. And I'm like, oh, okay, so yeah, it's real, hey. Like she's not doing the best. Why I felt a bunch of things around the time of recording my other video was because at the surface level of my grief was, I'm sad my sister's gone. Right, so I'm grieving that she's gone and I'm actually not going to see her. Just a layer below that is I'm grieving the fact that my nieces and nephews have lost their mother, right? A layer below that is that my mom has lost her daughter, or my parents have lost their daughter, but my mom's now primary caregiver for my sister's children. At this stage, I'm worried. I'm super worried because my parents, I think at this time, both of them had stopped working. There was going to be a lot of changes in terms of how my family functions. So I'm nervous about that. Am I grieving it? I'm not sure. I'm possibly grieving what a potential normal life could have been like. I don't know. Much deeper than that, I'm grieving the sister I never had. And I'm resentful of the sister I never had. And how dare she passes and departs from this world without affording me the opportunity to experience sisterhood the way that I have seen other people experience sisterhood, especially biological sisterhood, right? This was 2 years ago. And so those feelings aren't as strong today because there's a lot of things that I understand. One, the fact that for her, this was equally her first time here, and a lot of the things that she was doing and a lot of the ways that she showed up for me as a sister, she couldn't have been taught by anyone. So I have a lot of grace for her for that, which I didn't have 2 years ago. And it was kind of embarrassing for people, like when asked about like how do you feel, I wasn't purely sad. Like I was sad, sure, but I was also angry. Like I was angry at her, and being angry at people that have passed is, I don't know if that potentially brings you bad luck, right? I don't know. Is it the same as speaking ill of, the departed? I don't know. But I was also angry, and I guess I didn't know where to place this anger, because I can't go to her and say, hey, Miss Mamas, you have made me angry, therefore let's battle it out and let's find a way forward, because she's gone. She's gone, and there's no one to fight about my anger. And so when I realized while recording that video that, hey, I don't know if you are ready to share these things, but I also don't know if it's safe to do so, I said, I said, I'm not gonna put it out. And maybe just for context around why I grieved the sister I never had so much, potentially more than I was sad that she was gone, or hand in hand, right, is because my sister and I didn't have a smooth relationship, something that I still don't understand why. And for a very long time, I had the expectation that as the older sibling, I mean, we have an age gap of about, let me calculate actually. So we have an age gap of about 14 years. And that is a generational gap. Like, that is a clear difference in how society functioned at very two distinct points in time. Like, it wasn't 2 years where there was a lot of things that she could relate to that I was relating to as I entered my prime years. No. By the time I entered my prime years, she was well, within her, I don't want to say senior, but I mean, she was far more mature. And because of that maturity, I felt that she could have showed up for me a lot better. And when we did have the conflicts that we had, when there was points in time that we weren't speaking, as the older sister, I expected her to do so much more to ensure that that doesn't happen, right? Today, I have a lot more grace for her. I understand that she had to have been battling with things herself. She had to have been triggered through whatever actions I had taken, to stir up a fight. She had to have felt triggered to an extent that she ultimately showed up the way that she did. I don't blame her for her actions, and perhaps I'm extending more grace towards her because at this point we can't talk about it and she can't fight for herself. And so I'm mindful of the fact that I don't think it's helping anyone at this point to further hold on to this feeling of anger or this expectation of her to have done better. Though it is completely fair for me to feel robbed still of the experience of sisterhood. I remember a time where my sister, my brother and I were traveling to Mozambique. It was part of sort of my sister's spiritual group, if I can call it that, Impandeyake, for those that understand that context. And so we were traveling across the country for the first time, so we were excited. I was obviously young, I think grade 5, grade 7 maybe, which would have made her 14 years older than me. So she was definitely there to also oversee me as a guardian while we were gone because my parents weren't coming with. We went to Mozambique in very a warm season, and when we got there was actually a funeral taking place, which is so odd to me to think about that. We went to a funeral / vacation. So funeral happened, then we did vacation-y stuff. We went to the beach the one time, and at the beach we collected these shells, right? So we collected a bunch of shells. I mean, it might have been the first time I had been to the beach as a fully aware human being. I think the last time I went to the beach was when I was in grade 1, and I really cannot recall what the experience of the beach was like. So the next time I had gone to the beach was 7 years later in grade 7, and it was with my sister, and we collected these shells and hung around at the beach. It was a nice day. Mozambique happens, we come back. On the day of us coming back, we got home. My mom was getting ready to go to work, but we start unpacking our bags and we show her the stuff that we got her. We bought a bunch of beaded neck jewelry from the vendors at the beach or across the city. And as we open these bags, the shells start coming up, and we then reach for the same shell, and then we start claiming the same shell, right? And I'm like, no, it's mine. And she's like, girl, I remember your shell. Your shell had these etchings. I'm like, no, that was yours. I showed you mine to show you how pretty of a shell I found, and you were telling me that your shell wasn't as pretty, but you're still glad that you got it. It was one of those shells that twirl. I don't know what you call them. It was beautiful ivory, significant size. Once again, my first shell, basically. So we fight over the shell to a point where I eventually have an outburst. I say a bunch of things along the lines of, I hate you all. I don't recall, but I think that's what I would have said. But then I start crying. Like, I start crying uncontrollably. And everyone is worried. But also, obviously, my sister's like, no, she's defending her shell even after that, right? My mom is like trying to maintain, I suppose, a neutral stance, but she's super worried because of how I reacted. And so, because she was getting ready to go to work, she lets my brother know that, hey man, she's not looking too good right now. Can you please, look at, I think everyone was just, it was an unusual reaction from me, given that I was someone that I kept to myself most of the time. I wasn't very expressive with my emotions. I think that was the most expressive anyone had ever seen me, right? Well, never mind the years where I suppose I was a child and kids cry uncontrollably. So my mom was super worried about me and how I reacted in that moment, which I understand. I do think, though, there is a conversation to be had about expressing yourself as a Black girl, which is maybe not going to be had now. But I think the reaction towards my outburst expression of genuine emotions was overly dramatized. But that's not the chats, right? Okay, cool. Then days after that, I realized that my sister and I aren't talking. I make attempts to say things to her. She's cold. She's actually giving me the silent treatment. And that is something I struggle with so much as an adult. I get easily triggered by someone giving me the silent treatment, although it is a behavior that I also exhibit when I am triggered or like I'm not feeling great about something someone said. But I think I've gotten a lot better and I've leaned in more to my emotions now more than I probably used to in the past. My sister and I aren't talking, and that lasts days, weeks, then months. And that was super difficult. That was tough, man. I think, it was it's something I recall about the nature of our relationship, where we had these moments of genuine joy, sisterhood, and like we used to hang out together. We used to chill together. She used to do my hair. I used to chill with her friends. We had it was good, right? And then it wasn't in some instances. And that was such a dramatic shift. Like, sure, fight the way that siblings do, I guess. I don't know if that's something that should be normal in the first place. But to not talk to me, bro, like that was intense. So she's not talking to me. It lasts for months. I think I eventually I don't know, do I start school? I don't know. There was times where big things were happening in my life, puberty and stuff, where she was not as close to the process as I feel like she should have. And so our relationship, that's a glimpse of it. That's like kind of, it played around in that way where we had good moments and then not, and then good and then not for a number of years. The time where it did change, though, was after her cancer diagnosis. How I found out about the cancer is I had finished matric. I came to Cape Town, studied in my first year of university. I go home for the December vac period. And when I get there, I think on the day that I land, my sister's bald. Like, her whole head is shaved off and she's wearing a headscarf. And you can almost see, like, you know, because she's got the scarf in like this round way, and you know, the what do you call, is this a nape? I don't know. This area of her head is exposed, so you can see that she's bald. And I make this comments because she used to do like her hair and stuff. Like she took her looks to the max, right? She was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woman. And she played around and enhanced it quite a bit through her hair. So she would color her hair, she would braid, she would wear wigs, like she would do a lot of stuff. And so that's not something my sister would do, like, on a whim. She wouldn't cut her hair. So in my shock, I'm like, whoa, babes. So nembandla manje, like, which means you're bald now. I'm expecting, I just needed a change. And no, the room goes cold and silent. And I'm like, okay, something's happening here that I don't know about. And the party goes on. Well, actually, when I landed, she was hosting a birthday party for one of her children. So that's how, so when we went to the party, and at that party was where I made the comment. So the party ends, it goes into like, we stick around towards the end of the day, going into the nights and seeing everyone off and stuff. So my mom, my sister, a few other people were sitting in a room, chit-chatting away, talking about everyone that got sloshed at the party. You know what happens, like what you do at the end of an event, right? Then my mom kind of pulls me to the side in a little bit like, hey sis, let me loop you in. I'm like, okay. So she says to me, you know how you asked about your sister's hair, right? She actually has breast cancer. And I was like, okay, that is much to tell me. And then she says that they didn't tell me this because I was in school and I was going to get distracted and nervous, and they just kind of wanted her to, like, they wanted to keep that away from me, but also for her to like go through it and go through chemo. That is, yeah. Though there were periods within her diagnosis where, from what I understand, she had stopped chemo, which caused complications, the way I now understand cancer works. And so when she did finish chemo, did her radiation, years later, the cancer came back, and I think she did more chemo, more radiation. And then I think the third time around, it had metastasized. I think that's the word. So this is over a span of 7 years. Although during this time, I want to say this was probably where my sister and I were the closest. I mean, we still had quite the strain within us, but this is the first time I had witnessed her vulnerability. I had a bit of a glimpse into some of the things that she struggled with in her womanhood, in her parenthood, in her being a child to my parents, all of those things. Basically, I got a glimpse into the intersection of her traumas, and oddly enough, that did bring us a little bit closer, but not quite enough, because obviously during this time she's not doing too well, and then the day comes. This is 2022. On the day, I was unemployed at this point, so I was doing an interview for this role. I didn't end up taking it because I ended up going home and spending quite a bit of time at home after my sister's passing. So I'm doing this interview and I get a call from my mom, right? The last I heard of my sister, she was admitted to the hospital. Usually she would get admitted and then a few days later she gets out. On this day, I get a call from my mom and I missed the call. And then I get another call from my mom and I miss the call because I'm in this interview. So I know something is not okay because my mom doesn't tend to call me twice. Like if I miss the call, she'll maybe wait for me to call or she'll send a message after that. I can't remember if I end up calling my nephew after trying to reach my mom or if my nephew calls me now. So I'm no longer, like my mom and I are no longer trying to talk to each other. I'm trying to talk to my nephew because I think he also tried to call me and then I missed that call. I call him and I'm like, hi. And then he says, Ngane. And then like you could hear the Ngane was like him saying Ngane was like his voice was breaking. And then he lets out this chilling cry. And I say, no, Junior. And Junior's his name. I'm like, no. And he obviously can't continue talking. And then I hang up and I start. Then I leave my room. I go to the bathroom because, I start crying and my partner comes and is like, what's happening? And then I leave the room. I go to the bathroom and I stay there for a while. I'm trying to self-soothe. I'm rocking myself back and forth. I keep the room dark and I cry and I cry and I cry until I'm like, but then it became real. So many things became real at that point. The fact that I will never get to experience sisterhood became real. Her children growing up without their mother became real. The fact that we'll never actually get to resolving our relationship in the way that I had hoped became real. Because at this stage, I'm well into my 20s. Maybe not well, but like 2022, I could have been 25. I don't know. 24. I understand myself a lot better. I'm entering the prime of my womanhood. And there's a lot we can talk about. There's a lot more we can talk about now. So I'm also able to hold a bit more space for her with the knowledge, wisdom that I had gained over the 24 years of my life. So we are able to have deeper conversations. So on that day became real that that's all I get to have, right? You know, I thought about the fact that maybe it's too soon to do this. I thought I just had a mind. I was like, maybe it's too soon. I don't know. So on that day, it became real that that's all I get to have when it came to my sister. This is also the first time I experienced grief at this level. So I actually don't have the training for holding space for myself when I'm grieving. This is also not to say that the more you experience painful things, the better you are at handling them. But I think you've all seen how our Black elders, especially elders that are women, when things like this happen, they step into like planning mode, right? They step into, we need to plan a funeral. Like, and I've never actually witnessed, my aunts, my mom crying and going through grief, which would have, I feel like, made it easier for me to know what to do and how to feel, and maybe prepare me for the fact that the feelings are going to get murky at some points. So I didn't actually know how to show up and how to grieve and stuff. So things became very real. I quickly had to plan a trip home. Sure, that was a really, really difficult time. So, going back to the first time I experienced grief. So this was my older sister that I had known for 24 years of my life. I did have another older sister who passed, but I was way younger, right? So for me, this felt like the first time grief was happening this close to me. It also felt like the first time I was valid in crying and in feeling things. It felt like the first time that I finally could claim my ability to grieve. I had lost an ex-partner a few years before that, but I was like, I don't know if I get to grieve this person because at this point we are apart. I was kind of forced into grieving, though I tried so hard to fight it away. I was forced into grieving and that manifested into things, and yeah. But I was like, I can't grieve this person because we're not together. I was still sad, but I was like, I don't think it makes sense, and I'm actually not sure why I feel this sad. In the past, someone within the family would pass, but like extended family, and I would always try to hold back from grieving because I'm like, but that's not my mom, that's not my sister, that's not like, those people are the ones that need to be feeling all of these things, not me, because so I would maybe cry there. Also, sad moments make me sad. So, I mean, I would cry here and there, but I'd be like, I don't think it's my place. But this time around, I had the open ground. I had the field was open. It was my time now to feel things and feel sad and, go through the motions of loss. I don't think I did it enough, and I don't think I expected that it would eventually feel the way that it felt towards the end of that year. I didn't expect that feeling of resentment would show up for me, or that feeling of grieving the person I never got to experience would show up for me. I had never I knew that, grief is not linear. I know that. I think we've all come to realize that. I suppose grief is not straightforward, but man, I don't know if people speaking more about their own grief, I don't know if consuming more content around grief, I don't know what would have helped to prepare me for not feeling just sad about the loss of my sister, but also that angry and that regretful of the time we'll never get to have because she's gone, right? So that was complicated, and I'm clearly still emotional about this whole experience, and right now it's more feeling sad really about realizing that, well, she's not coming back. It's less the anger, because over the years I've come to understand and have more grace for her in light of the strain of our relationship, right? My sister would have been 33 when she was diagnosed with cancer. I'm turning 33 in 5 years, and boy, that would rock me. She lived till she was 40 or about to turn 40, but 33 is young. I'm coming to realize that in as much as I had this expectation of my sister being older, some of the ways that she showed up and the age that she was when she was showing up in the ways that I didn't find ideal, she would have been my age. And boy, am I not showing up in the best of ways for everyone around me, because I don't know how to, right? You're not taught these things. And even if you are, the world evolves and complexities are added to relationships, and generations change, and they experience things differently than we did, and therefore we will always have this thing where there's no clear, there's always going to be a difference in how people need to be showed up for, purely because they exist in different generations. And so as I realize that now, I'm like, hey, she was young. She was super young. She was doing this for the first time. And maybe it was a little unfair of me to... I think my feelings were valid. I still till today, I validate that I felt that way. I question whether... I don't know. I question something about it. I question whether there's anything she could have done better. I realized that she was young, and while it is fair that I felt so triggered and so neglected and so lonely at times for not having that girlhood. I tell my friends this, or I've told them before, that, hey, I've seen how you guys interact with your sisters, and I have so much envy over those relationships, because it's something I never got to have, and it's something that I most likely will never get to have. I mean, my friends are still my sisters though, so there is that, but they have their own sisters, so it's a bit orcs. So, and that was a source of that was the murkiness that was happening for me when I had to process my sister's passing. And for that, I felt deeply regretful of not being able to, of the fact that I was never going to be able to turn back time, nor would I be able to, I don't know. Essentially, there's nothing I could do. And I've battled with that a lot. That I'm sad and there's nothing that I can do about it. And I'm sad of more than the fact that she has passed. I'm also angry at the fact that she has passed. And for the longest time, I expected that she could have done something, knowing that, and I don't know if she knew, actually. I don't think, I as we were watching Parenthood, I realized that from watching the character that was diagnosed with cancer, that my sister must have been afraid. She must have been afraid. And in the 7 years that she had, she never knew how long she had. So to her, she always had the next best moment. And it's something I'm only understanding because of watching Parenthood. So maybe she didn't want to go into the fights anymore. She didn't want to address the fact that we were at bad points before. We never had more fights in that time, but I always thought that at some point we were going to be able to go back and say, hey sis, what was that? My camera died, so I had to take a bit of a break to charge it. I think the last thing I spoke about was just thinking about, I suppose, how over the years I have taken time to reframe, but also process things a bit differently. And when I was watching the series called Parenthood, I understood things a little bit differently around what my sister could have been going through. And I suppose 3 years is still a bit premature to say that healing has begun to take place, but I think I'm confident to say we're well on our way towards healing the parts that I actually do want to heal. I actually don't know if I want to let go of feeling sad of losing my sister. I don't know if I want to heal that, because somehow that feels like completely letting go of her, and I don't know what that means. So I'm a little bit scared to try and attempt to heal the sadness. It obviously goes in waves, and I mean, I don't even know if that's possible, if I'm being honest. But in terms of the anger and the resentment and the regret of that person that I will never get to have, I think years in, it doesn't feel as heavy, and it's not the most dominating aspect of how I grieve my sister. And yeah, it could potentially be also the fact that I don't know if there's any easier way to pass, but I think having heard my mom speak about her last days, it was one of the most painful things to hear. As soon as I got home, when I heard the news, I slept in the bedroom my mom was sleeping in, and during the night she would just, I don't know if that was her process as well, but she would have these moments where she's like, when this happened, then this happened, and then she would tell the story of how they eventually recognized. She would tell the story of how she eventually saw that my sister's passing, because my mom and my dad went to the hospital that morning because my sister was apparently calling for my mom, which is a bit kind of scary to hear. So she says when the doctors called her and she said she wants to see you and she was crying all night to see you, they went and they stuck around with her for a while, and then apparently she started praying or something. I can't really remember the details, but then her spirit eventually left. And so my mom was with her when she did pass, which, looking back, I think my mom was the one taking care of my sister when she was like getting much worse. I'm glad that she found that safety. I think sometimes when I imagine, sometimes I think, and this is unfortunate, but parents are one of the biggest contributors to our trauma, right? And we try to heal from the mistakes that they made at no fault to them, because once again, they're doing life for the first time. But I think for my sister in particular, to have the opportunity, and perhaps for my mom, to reparent. Maybe I should have that conversation with her one day, to reparent my sister and care for her, and for my sister to feel safe and have my mom create safety for her. I think, though it was difficult, I can't imagine I wasn't close. I mean, yeah, I think for them being there, it was most certainly much, much, much harder, because you're actually watching someone deteriorate over time. So I cannot say that I know what their pain must have felt like, but she was around her people towards her last days. She was around my mom. She was around her family, and I'm glad that they got to have that. So yeah, that has been my battle with grieving my sister. Though a battle, I think, over the years has gotten slightly better, it was a battle nonetheless. And I'm so glad that there's a difference between how I felt then and how I feel now. I'm also glad that I think then, even though I said that was my chance to grieve, I think I don't know if I still felt, it's hard to grieve someone you didn't necessarily always agree with, right? It's hard to grieve someone, well, at least for me, it was hard to grieve someone that I felt we had so much tension with. So I did have instances where I was like, but I mean, we weren't that close. Like, we weren't like best of buddies. But now it doesn't matter to me, right? All the things that make me sad about the situation are my grief, right? Sad that she's gone, sad that I couldn't experience her in the way that I felt I deserved, sad that we now we are going to witness her children miss her. At some points I also felt so upset about her leaving her children behind. They were so young, and they I don't know, I felt like they're so young, they need to have their mom around, right? I still have my mom, and I know how much of a difference that makes for me. So it's going to be an interesting life for them, which I feel super sad about on their behalf. But at the same time, her children all represent something that serves as a positive memory for her. And that also helps with processing that I will never get to experience her. I get to experience them, right? And in a way, it feels like it exposes me to her, especially her daughters. Her daughters are very much the different sides of my sister. And I guess that's fun. I'm still not, experience with them every day, but when I do, I get a lot of her in them. So she was cool for leaving us with him. So we get to use that I suppose use that to remember her. But yeah, years in, you can tell it's still very difficult. It's still very sad. I don't know if it doesn't get sadder. Like, I don't know if it gets less sad and less painful. But this is the most I think I've ever spoken about her, besides to my partner. And I think this is the most emotional I've been about it since her funeral. Over the years, I've been like kind of cruising about, but I feel like this year, watching Parenthood, realizing that she was young, she was doing life the first time, having all of these ways to understand her differently has brought about a different kind of sadness for me. But I'm glad I get to experience it, and I'm glad I get to grieve her still. I'm glad I get to have that. As hard as it is, I'm no longer holding back, and I no longer feel like I don't deserve to grieve her. And that's different. That feels different. So yeah, if you are experiencing, a very complex relationship with grief, I just want you to know that you're not alone. I have tried to unpack some of my own in the past 40 or so minutes. Something that this has made me super afraid of, though, is the concept of death and how close it is to us and how easily it can happen, which I don't enjoy. I really don't enjoy thinking about it so much. But one thing that the series Parenthood, one of the characters said, she wanted to run for president. And so she was doing her last chemo, or it was after her last chemo. And she was explaining to the other patient who actually was supporting her. She said, like, don't wait. And that has been echoing in my brain since. That as much as, there is a lot of difficulty in processing grief, and as much as that has, I suppose, made me so afraid of loss and death, at the same time, it's not a reason to wait to experience life the way that I want to. It's not a reason to wait for anything. It's not a reason to wait to get your affairs in order, to wait to get help. It's not like, don't wait is what I took from there. And maybe that puts me at a very false kind of positive, hyper positivity or fake positive, but it has changed my perspective quite a bit. So yeah, that is the chats. And this is the conversation I was afraid to have 2 years ago. And I've had it, and I'm so glad that I did. And to whoever listens, if this does trigger something for you, you're open to sharing, please reach out to your support system to help you through those feelings as well. And if you've gotten to this part of the episode, thank you so much for holding space and for allowing me to open up in the way that I have. I hope that through me sharing my story, you're encouraged to share yours in whatever format you feel safe to do. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for the support you guys have provided so far. I think I'm really excited for this leg of Call It Growth. It is hard. It is seemingly going to be hard because these are some interesting conversations, but I'm super excited. And if you haven't yet, please remember to check out Call It Growth Healing Circles. I've put a lot of information into a website about how to join, who's welcome in the space. Well, everyone is, but who the space mainly centers, and that is Black, people of color, queer folk, women, and people of marginalized identities. I really want to foster a community of people that want to heal and not allow the limitations of mental health resources being inaccessible to limit us. So check it out, sign up on the form, let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you on my next episode. Take care of yourself. Bye.